People have a great thought of writing a book, but are intimidated by that blank page and someone telling them I need 60,000 words by end of next month or whatever it may be. To take that kind of intimidation and that fear away is a really big thing.
Welcome to another episode of The Energy of Success. I am really excited because last year I made the decision to bring back some more guests onto the podcast after doing it for solo for about 6 or 8 months. And I've hand selected these guests. I've not just gone, anybody want to come on? I have picked people who I know will bring a story to you, who will bring a different dynamic, who will bring a different perspective, but ultimately will bring a whole load of humor as well. Because the energy of success is all about individual journeys. So the expert that I'm sharing with you today is an expert in his field, and I will let him introduce himself and let you know a little bit more about him. So welcome, 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 Sam. I'm excited that you're on here. Tell my
Right.
listeners a bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a bit concerned that you said it has to be humorous, so I feel I have to be funny now, which is a bit like a pressure, but I'll roll with that. My name's Sam Johnson. I am a copywriter for the last 9 or 10 years. I've worked with hundreds of clients. I've ghostwritten a Sunday Times best-selling book, and I now run my own business called The Hook Book, where I make books of 5 to 10,000 words for entrepreneurs that can be read in less than an hour, to work as a funnel, to work as a business card, to work as a kind of audience growth tool, really. And that's me.
So, and you are funny because I do know you in real life. So let's just stop that pretense. So let's talk about pre 10 years ago. So who were you? What were you doing pre 10 years ago? Because if 10 years you've been a copywriter, what were you doing before? Kind of like let the listeners know a little bit about that backstory.
It's a great question, actually, because I spent, I'm now 56, 46, so probably the best part of 30 years working in generic, boring corporate jobs that didn't really light my fire, but were okay, paid the bills. Um, and I always had a dream. I had this list of 3 things that I wanted to be: was a footballer, a rock star, or a writer. And I tried and failed at the first 2 with a mixture of success and failure, but fun along the way. And then when I met my current wife, Lisa, we've been together 13 years, just over now. She started her own business and I started writing for her. And it was then about 10 years about 10 years ago when I wrote something for her. Someone went, "Who wrote that?" And she said, "Oh, my husband Sam did it." And so she said, "Can she do something for me then?" And Lisa was kind of said, "Well, I suppose he could." And then at that point, I thought, "Oh, okay, I might be able to actually make this a goer." So, long story short, lots of years doing boring jobs, met someone who had a big entrepreneurial mind, started their business. I wrote for them, and then it's just kind of grown from there. So I am extremely grateful, really, to just be able to write stuff every day. What a joy, what a privilege, what a pleasure to have.
I know you are incredibly fortunate in loads of ways, aren't you? And also incredibly talented. So let's just talk about the actual writing piece, because lots of people might have these dreams, might have the dream of being a footballer or a rock star. Classic 70s dreams. Some people might have them.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, a huge amount of people, will have a desire to write something of their own, to have that skill, have that creativity, because for some reason they haven't been able to tap into it. Is this kind of like something that you've always had, this creativity? Was it in your boring corporate jobs? Or was it something that's kind of like evolved as you've been given the gift and the opportunities? As it evolved?
Bit of both, really. I've always been quite a creative kid. I would write short stories. I formed a band when I was like 17 and wrote all the songs for that. So I was always writing songs, always writing stories, little poems and stuff. So there was always that in me. I'm terrible at maths, terrible at science.
Yeah.
I like more creative stuff. Um, but I think it has probably grown over the years because as people, I think we learn, we develop, we absorb. and that all becomes part of what we write about. I mean, if you're a 10-year-old trying to write a story, you've got 10 years worth of anecdotal evidence to put into your story. If you're a 56-year-old man, you've got a lot more. You might not remember it all, but you've got a lot more that you can put in there. So I think it's a combination of both. I've always been creative. I've always wanted to write, and I did try and shoehorn it into my corporate jobs. I had one boss who I used to knock on his door, and he would say, "Yes, Sam, just write it. It's fine," without me even mentioning what it was, because he knew that I wanted to write something for a newsletter or something to our customers. So yeah, it's a bit of a combination of both, I'd say.
And would you say it's so if we're getting into the energy, so would you say you're in your ultimate flow when you're writing? Does it feel super easy? Do you feel like that you're guided as to what you're going to write, or do you feel like you are still quite intellectual in it?
It's quite woo-ish, that question, isn't it? It's bordering on the woo.
I'm waiting to see what you say.
You know me, you know what I'm like. I'm quite a pragmatic kind of.
I know that's why I'm waiting for the answer.
I wouldn't say it's like in the flow to a point. Here's the point. When I write, I'm terrible old school typist. I use like three fingers at most, right? And I have to
Yeah.
stare at the keyboard. I can't look at the screen, not a chance. So I'm staring at the keyboard. Now, what I would say, as far as in the flow that I get, is I can't stop it if it's in my head. That's partly because I'm quite old and I forget stuff, and I don't want to miss that kind of moment of inspiration. But quite often when I look up at the screen, three-quarters of it is underlined in red because I've spelled it wrong, and then I have to then go back and try and remember what I meant to say in the first place. But I'd rather do it that way than pause and lose it. Sometimes the passion leads you. If I'm writing something that I truly believe in, then it'll flow. But I work with a lot of different people. I work with accountants. I work with uh, everything you could think of, and obviously their passion isn't my passion. So I think it's a different process with that. But as a copywriter, part of the role is you have to understand your client's voice. You have to understand what makes them tick. Um, so in the flow to a point, but always with an end goal. Um, but the best writing is the writing you don't really have to think about. If you're a sportsman or anyone who plays sport, football, golf, anything, when you hit the ball perfectly, you don't even feel you've hit it. And
Mhm.
it's much like that when you're writing. You don't even really know you're doing it. It just gets there.
And so are you more in the let's get everything out of my head without looking at the screen, let's
Yeah.
get everything out of my head, and then let's reflect back on it?
Yeah, I do. I like to get it down, and then I'll have to rejig it. And I think sometimes in this world of AI, we all write a bit like AI these days because it's working both ways. We see stuff that's written that way, so it impacts our writing. And of course, AI has created a style that's based on the way people write these days. That's why it's done it, and that's why the lines are really, really blurred. I have no issue with AI as a tool, but don't use it as the be all and end all of what you're writing. So yeah, I do think that there's a place for it, but not at the expense of everything else.
Well, I think this is where your business, we'll talk about your business in a minute, but I think this is where your business comes in because you're bringing the human into the business. And I know a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the people that we know collectively, this is really, really important,
Mm.
massively important because the humans are getting lost and the human is what's leading everything that they're doing. So let's talk a little bit about the hook book. Let's talk about how it
Cool.
was born.
Yeah. Well, there's a story. You would know there's a story behind that. So my wife, Lisa Johnson, she had this idea for a TV show. And this TV show was to prove that anyone could go from nothing to making their first sale in less than 30 days. The caveat was that this person had to be a very non-entrepreneurial person, which was me, because that's not who I am. And so we did this and we filmed it live over 30 days, even to the point I had to shave my beard off at the beginning to prove that it was chronological, that we hadn't just popped in and gone, oh, we've had a sale. Um, so then the question arose, what do I make this business about? And we kind of chucked it about a bit, and we kind of knew that passion generally drives profit. So what was I passionate about? Football, darts, whiskey, music. These were the things that came up. And we've kind of, yeah, probably not. I don't know. Lisa, being Lisa, was very forthright in her opinions. And then we got on to writing, which is sort of what I did anyway, obviously. And we were like, well, okay. And I said, well, I'd like to be more creative with what I do rather than copywriting if we're doing something. And then we had a remembrance of this guy we'd met in Canada who was making small books. These were fiction books, as it happens, not business books. But so we kind of were inspired by him because, I mean, books have been around for thousands of years. You can't really copyright a book, it's some paper with words on it. So we had this idea: could we write business books that were 5 to 10,000 words long, that could be read in less than an hour, that wouldn't need much of the person's time to create these books? I would have an interview with them, I would transcribe it, and then I would write the book. Which seemed to tick a lot of boxes because entrepreneurs are often very time starved. They often have
Yep.
very short attention spans as well because they're creative people. So if
Yep.
we gave them something that they could read in less than an hour, we thought this would probably be a winner, and that's what we went with. And then the TV show sort of documented my journey, going through from nothing, drinking lots of tea, being generally a bit of a class clown, because that's kind of my role. And then actually having to do it and having to do some live stuff on social media and all this kind of stuff like I'm doing now, which, whilst I like a chat, probably wouldn't be at the top of my to-do list. Yeah.
So when throughout that journey, because I know it was an experience,
Hmm.
did you, the listeners are keen. Did you make a sale within the 30 days?
Well, I mean, they can watch it. They can go on
You can
YouTube
watch it.
and
Yeah,
on the impact.
all of the links to get hold of Sam and this, so you can watch it, will be given as well. So
Awesome. Yeah. But yes, we did. I don't, no spoiler alert. We did. And it was, do you know what was beautiful about it? Because, total honesty here, there were certain scenes that the guys filming it said, right, you need to go in and say to Lisa, I'm struggling with this. I can't do it. But this first sale scene was absolutely perfectly unscripted and really happened. And Terry, who works for Lisa, actually had the computer open and then started making really bizarre sort of squeaky noises of excitement. So then the lads with the cameras had to come running in and film her. And then we had champagne and McDonald's for our lunch on that day to celebrate,
love it.
which kind of sums up the way we are in this kind of, in my world, really. It's a bit of a balance going on there. So yes, it did happen. And now I'm 14 clients in since November, which is pretty good.
Epic.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
So let's talk about what it's been like since, what it's been like with those clients. Where did they come from, those ones that have jumped in, and what was the thing that why did they buy from you, Sam? What was that? What was the hook into you?
You sound so shocked that anyone would.
Yeah,
No,
why?
what would they buy from you?
What
Um,
was the hook in, Sam?
uh, I think there were a few elements to it. People have a great thought of writing a book, but are intimidated by that blank page and someone telling them I need 60,000 words by end of next month or whatever it may be. To take that kind of intimidation and that fear away is a really big thing. So I think most of the people that came at the beginning were like, even in the future, if I do want to write my full size, big, thick book, this I can get done in a couple of months and get it out there. And even that could be a funnel for my big book, or, so there's plenty of ways you can use it. And I think that's what people first off were interested in. There were the people that had been sitting on their idea for ages and really knew what they wanted their book to be, but just hadn't got round to it and didn't have the time, but could find an hour for me to have a chat with them and then I write it. Um, and then I think there were just people who felt that perhaps this was something different. It was just a different way of doing it, that had been working on their visibility and their marketing and their positioning. And this was just a different way to do that. And I'm, a bit old school. And I remember giving out business cards, and I sort of see it a bit like that well, you give them out as if it's a business card. So I think that's probably the three main reasons that people got involved.
So one of the reasons that I think, because I know there's people that are in your space that will come and invest with you, definitely. One of the things that I believe is, A, you're really talented at what you do, but the speed that you can turn this around for
Yeah.
people, for high performers. high performers who I speak with, they're like, they want everything done like last week. And they have shed loads of things that they want to do, and the books are always on there. But the
Yeah.
speed, like you say, an hour of their time, and then within a few months, they've got this asset that is physical that then they can take to wherever they're going. They can add in, they can post to anybody that's interested, they can use as a funnel in loads of different ways. And it's the kickstart for a much bigger book. Do you have another offer that you can help people write a bigger book?
Not at the moment. A couple of people have asked, but I'm focusing on growing this business and getting this. If I get this to a point where I then have the time, I can rethink how I provide this business, and I may do it. But at the moment, I think because this is such a unique offer that I want to focus on that and not sort of dilute it. So I did write Lisa's for her, which was a challenge. 65,000 words. That's a lot of words, Um, and so I understand why people are intimidated by it. I like to quote a title of an album by a band that I really like, which is All Killer, No Filler. And I think that's what the hook books are, just get your best stuff. Just get the cream off the top. And that's what we'll put in.
I love it. So, the people that have invested in you and the many more to come, what's their feedback? What are the things that they love about it, Sam?
I think you touched on the speed and the efficiency of it. And I've learned on the way, don't get me wrong, I've made some mistakes, and some I could have done things quicker. I could have done things more efficiently, but I think that's just learning as a business owner. But I think it's the speed. It's the fact that really they only need to give me an hour of their time. But I always caveat that by saying, look, I may have to get back in touch if I don't understand something. We may have to add a bit in, but really it's about an hour. And then what I find is the only time we sometimes do get a hold up is when they're sent the first draft, and then they have to read it and appraise it. And that's the time that can take the time, because I think once it's back in their court, they can sort of overthink and overanalyze. But overall, we're doing start to finish 8 weeks from interview to printed. So there's not really, and the only reason for a delay on that would be if a client, something happened in their life, or they just said that I want to just put it on hold for a while, which has happened, which is fine. Um, but overall, yeah, 8 weeks is realistic.
And what happens, which is really quick, what happens about the whole cover design?
Oh, we do. So we have a professional graphic designer, and she creates 3 cover designs. This is one of the mistakes I made actually. At the beginning, I said in the T's and C's, I said, we create your cover design. And I think I ended up doing about 15 for somebody because
Yeah,
it didn't say how many we would offer. And hands up, you know what I mean?
yeah, learning. That's a learning.
So now it says three cover designs. And if they're not massively keen, I mean, we'll get all of their color palettes, we'll get color things they hate, we'll get things they like, we'll get all of their corporate logos and everything, and we'll get all of that. So we will have the best possible chance of getting it right. But if they don't like any of the 3, then there is no problem at all. They can design their own or get someone to design it for them. So that's absolutely fine. But we will create 3, and they get 3 rounds of amends on the copy. And it's all proofread. And then we print up 100 books, nice shiny books, and get them delivered to their doorstep.
Epic. I
Mhm.
mean, it's such a good service. So, what have you learned? Two things I want to touch on next, just before we wrap up. What have
Mhm.
you learned about yourself in the process? Because the Energy of Success podcast is about success for people, which is so multi-layered, but really it's about what's the person learn about themselves in what it is that they've come to talk to me about. So what have you learned that you didn't know? I mean, I'm sure you knew lots about yourself, like you say, because you are 56, and when you're in your
Mhm.
50s, you're quite wise. But what did you learn about yourself that you really didn't know before?
I learned that I actually don't mind a bit of structure, um, which I would never have accepted before.
Wow.
I know, and you know me a bit, Charlotte, and
Yeah.
I'm a chill, I laid back kind of sound a bit like David Brent there, but I'm not overly formatted and formulaic in what I do. I like a bit of freedom, but I suppose I've learned if I am doing this on my own, which I am now, really, um, I need to have some kind of organisation in place. So that's the biggest learning I've taken from before. Um, what I have kind of reiterated and understood, and now I've learned. Let's say it is a learning. I know I've learned that I really need to work on it. Is I need to get out there more. I need to be promoting more. I need to be marketing more. Um, I thrive on positive affirmations, and I want people to say, "Oh, this is great, this is great." I don't deal very well with people saying it's not very good. Not that I've had that kind of level of complaint, but I have people saying a couple of times, "I think this is written by AI." It isn't written by AI, um, and I struggle with stuff like that a little bit, and I'm working on that because it's never going to be plain sailing when it's me in the hot seat. So I think they're the sort of two. One I sort of knew, and one I didn't know at all, and they're probably the two things that I've come across since I've started.
So, for all the creatives that I have listening all over the world, Sam has just said that actually he wants he does benefit from a little bit of structure, which I think is super valuable for people who are navigating success, especially when you're creative, especially when you're in spaces like copywriting, because your desire and your passion is in that freedom of the language and the words and the tonality and everything like that. And
Yeah.
so the structure within what you're doing and within what you're producing, for you to lean into that has been massively, massively positive. But I am going to ask one more question. But first of all, I'm going to talk about Sam as a human. For people that don't know Sam, he is like one of the most laid back people I've met, but he's also one of the most considerate, kind, and caring people that I've met in a very, other people might not pick up on this with him. So he may be like the class clown, he may be that kind of person, but I would absolutely put my life on the fact that if he listens to what you're saying, he will then transmute what you're saying. He will then absolutely understand you as a person, what it is that you're passionate about, and be able to navigate that and put it in these books, like the people who have bought from him and continue to buy from him. So, like I say, everyone can find out more about Sam's business and the whole little script, how he went from having no beard and everything on that journey, which is quite funny. And the other thing I want to talk about is, well, two things. One is, do you now see yourself as an entrepreneur?
No, I still can't. I haven't quite got that far yet. I've always feel a bit of a fraud, and as I've been told numerous times by wiser people than me, there's no such thing as imposter theory. It's just people have been doing it longer than you theory, and I accept that. So I still don't really know. I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur. It's nice to get paid, although I've also had a rude awakening about this country's tax system, which obviously, as someone who's only ever been paid a wage, I wasn't really aware of before.
Yeah.
So that's not the greatest, but not yet. But I'm working on it.
So do you see yourself as like just like dabbling? Is this just a
I'm,
sideline, or do you see
I I have just gone beyond dabbling,
good?
and there's a stretch towards being an entrepreneur. There's a gap there. I don't know what would be that gap. Uh, Probably want to earn enough just to pay VAT. That might be the one where I go.
Okay.
Oh, there
Well,
you go.
well, maybe actually another word for it is being an expert. Do you see yourself as an expert?
Yes, but always to a point. I do now because, of course, there are people doing what I do. Like I said earlier, you're never going to be able to create something. It's a book, but I think perhaps the way I'm doing it is what makes it unique and different to everybody else's. It's the time required. It's the time required to read it. It's the cost. All of that stuff wrapped up in one thing. I think is what makes the difference.
What makes the difference is it's you, Sam. It's one of the
Oh, thanks
differences.
very much. I don't know if that's a good difference or a bad difference, but
Well, it's what people are buying into, isn't it? They're buying into you, but the other thing is the whole service.
yeah.
So taking a pressure that somebody's got and you're just running with it, takes it out. As a
I
high
think
performer, the high performers, they a big part of your audience. The high achievers that I have as clients, they want things, like I've said, gone quick, but you take everything out. All they have to do is an hour and then pick the cover
Yeah, exactly.
and then
Yeah,
read it.
exactly.
Read
Yeah.
it, but they pretty much trust you. They'll skim read it because that's why the service works, because it is to be read within an hour. So really, 2 hours, and they're done.
Yeah, yeah, that's the concept, yeah.
Do you talk about that, Sam?
Yeah, I do. I
A bit
do.
more, maybe a bit more.
You're probably right. You're not the first to say it, but I am getting there.
Well, you're on here, aren't you? Which is global.
Exactly. Yeah, that's quite a big deal for me.
Yeah, it is a massive win. And so now I just want to touch briefly on your fabulous wife, Lisa, because there will be people listening who know that you're married to Lisa. And I want to talk about what that dynamic has been like, just in a you setting up this business, obviously having a wife who's wildly successful. A lot of people know her. She's like top of the game at what she does.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
What's this been like for you? What's this been like? Have it felt like she's watching over you? I know that she's found some bits interesting.
Toughest bit is the difference in our work ethic and the way our brains work. Like, to a point where she will say one thing, which just proper like smashes out the park everything everyone else has thought of, and expects everyone else's brains to work at that speed.
Yeah,
And you've worked with her before, Charlotte.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
she's like. She has a brain unlike any other
She
when it
does.
comes to slicing through the crap to get to what really matters. And that's been the toughest bit. But let me be honest, she's been an amazing support, and you know, who else has someone like that in their locker? You know, but she also again has been pretty hands off with it. I think she said, "You're not a kid, you know, you go out and do this yourself." So that is what's happened. But it's been a good balance. We've worked together a long time. We understand the kind of way that should work, and we have our own spaces and we do our own things. It's been overall, it's been fantastic. She moans at me for drinking tea. I think that documentary just brought to light how much tea I actually drink. I don't think she really knew. And she thought I was just putting it on for the cameras. I genuinely wasn't. I would be lost without my tea. Um, but there's what else addictions you could have, right?
Of course, of course. And I love the fact that this has been a journey for you. Um, like just from a spark of idea, because Lisa's brain is phenomenal. I
Yeah.
have a huge amount of love and respect for her, as you know. Her brain is phenomenal. It works at speeds that people can't comprehend. And for her to be able to step back, I'm like doing, a hell yes for Lisa to be able to step back and let you do it, and you be
Yeah.
able to step into the space and go, okay, I'm going to learn this, has been phenomenal. But I love the dynamic between the two of you. But I want people to really see that this is you as a venture on your own. This is not
Yeah.
you as Lisa's husband. This is Sam on it as his standalone, and with his own talents, with his own way of learning, with your own growth.
It
And I
is.
think that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to share about the energy of success? Is there anything that you think that about the energy? Do you feel like you've got your passion, your motivation, or some bits?
It's passion is at the heart of everything if you want to be successful, and that's about as woo as I'll ever get, right? But I mentioned I mentioned the rockstar footballer writing thing. They were my three big passions. They're still quite high on my passion list now, to be honest, just for my own benefit. And I think if someone had said, "Oh, you've got," I don't know, make a business making frames for pictures. Even if it had been the best idea in the world, I wouldn't have had a passion for that because it's not it doesn't fire me up. Whereas this does fire me up. So undeniably follow your passion if you can find a way to do it. Doesn't have to make you money, but if you can follow it at some way in your life, then I think you're going to be in a much better place.
Well, it's if you follow your passion, from my perspective, every life just gets easier. You get opportunities come to you. You're a much happier, healthier person and version of yourself, and so it's like win-win, isn't it? But there's still time for you to be this famous footballer, and there's still time for you to be the rock star. Who knows?
Well, I think the football might be done, but I never give up on the rock star thing.
Yeah, you're still a rock star in your own head, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Just haven't got the hair for it, but other than that, I'm all there. Yeah.
Thank you so, so much for being on the podcast and getting a little bit more visible. Let people know how they can get hold of you, Sam. What's the best way? What's the best?
Best way's on Instagram, the Hookbook Official. If you go on there, there's a nice little link tree on there that will take you to my website and to the link for the TV show and all that stuff. So get yourself an Insta. That's 100% Hookbook Official.
And all the details to get hold of Sam, like the website and everything else that he's going to share with me, will be at the bottom of the podcast episode, so you can see them there. But thank you so much. This has been an interesting one. I think anybody who's thinking about sitting on a book, especially the people that are in my audience, don't sit on any longer. Just have a conversation with Sam. He'll be really honest. If you're in the right place, he'll be really honest with you, whether it's a goer or not. And he will take it off your hands and produce it to your door within 8 weeks.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.